Thank you. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, April 12th. The recommendation is that these minutes be approved.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item, item 2, is a delegation. I'd like to invite Ms. Mary Hitz from 2939 Surf Crescent to come forward to present to the committee.
Hello, Ms. Hicks. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your emails.
Oh, you're very welcome. The street appreciates your attention to this matter. I do have something to hand out. These are original, so I'll give the originals here. And just so I can follow on the course of our discussion. And it is a brief presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just, I guess, before you start your presentation, just to maybe give you some information. As we all know that you missed the mark, so to speak, the first time through. And we are all aware of that. And the process the city has to follow, okay, this is not our choice, but this is what we have to follow, is that if you wish concrete curbs and gutters in that part rather than tar, that the process has to be done, and the city would have to send out letters to you again, and then they would have to be signed and sent back to the city. The city is prepared for that, and
That's wonderful.
and so I know you've got a presentation, but
Oh, then that's fine. I really don't need to say anything more. I'm glad that everybody's well versed in what the situation was. And I do have to say that the citizens of the street do apologize for this lack of communication amongst ourselves. Well, with people on holidays and the Olympics, it unfortunately slipped through. And we will look forward. Do you have any date?
well, just to let you know, I have spoken, just for my other staff members, I just did it this morning. I've spoken with staff, and I think Mr. Zaborniak and I spoke in that, I'll just confirm with Mr. Zaborniak that we could have the letters sent out by this Wednesday to the residents of Surf Crescent. Yeah. And what we would like is, I think, if we could have them returned, Mr. Zaborniak, you said within 2 weeks? Yes. 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 Right. So my suggestion to you would be that these will go out on Wednesday. Tuesday next week, if someone like yourself could contact your residents to make sure that they have received them, and if they have received them, to please have sent them back.
All right. Was it possible for me to collect them and bring them in manually for the street?
I will ask Mr. Gilbert about that, or Mr. Zaborniak.
Via mail.
Through the chair, our process has been actually to mail them directly to the property owners. So we will do that, like we said, on Wednesday, and make sure they go out quickly. But that just is the way the process in Coquitlam has worked, in that we want each individual property owner to have the opportunity to kind of make the decision on their own. Certainly, the people on the street someone on the street can remind everyone and to get their petition in. That's certainly.
The question was, though, that if they're in envelopes or sealed, would she be able to pick them up and bring them back to the city to speed up the process of returning them? Is that not allowed or allowed?
We could do that as well. We could, I mean, maybe it's better for a staff person to do that, and then we can ensure that it's, it's just then it's more
unbiased
official.
Person. And,
yeah, we could do that. We could hand deliver that, the letter.
No, I mean, when they've signed it and sealed it in an envelope, can we bring it in ourselves, or does it have to come via Canada Post?
Gilbert?
No. I'll take, Mr. Chair, I'll take a stab at that. The reason why there is a bit of urgency is because there is a contractor working there now.
Exactly.
And all of us don't want to suffer additional cost for remobilization, et cetera. So we're asking that the residents treat this with some urgency. It seems to me that if the letters are sent to the homeowners in their home, and they get a chance to deliberate by themselves whether they wish to have this, sign it, seal it, put it into an envelope, and those envelopes happen to be returned by someone who wants to gather them from the community, that would be perfectly fine. Our interest is to get that information ASAP so that we can retain the contractor.
Thank you, because that's in our best interest as well. And really, once again, we appreciate this, and we will be sure to be expedient on it.
Mayor, just wait. I think I would. So we've got an Mr. Gilbert.
And perhaps just to add that question, or people can hand deliver it themselves. I think your question was, does it have to arrive by a Canada Post, and that's not necessarily
Okay,
true.
that's good. This way we can keep a better count on how things are progressing.
Thank you.
Thank you
And-
very much.
Yes, and we got some good, so we're trying to, with your cooperation, ours, we will try to get this corrected as speedily as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate this, and our citizens appreciate it too. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sikora, you had a comment?
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Anything else?
Okay.
Apologize.
Robinson, did you have anything? We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those will be hopefully going out on Wednesday, and so I know you'll make sure your neighbors are aware and
Thank you.
having them back.
Appreciate that. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice afternoon.
Next item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item relates to the previous item. It concerns a local area service that serves Crescent. Given the results of the previous conversation, the recommendation is that this report be deferred and then revised pending the results of the new process.
So
Thank you.
moved.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
Second? All those in favor? Go ahead. Do you have a comment?
Another thing, at the engineering department, why, I don't know why we're trying to put these asphalt curbs into our city. I've driven the city, and I'll tell you, those asphalt curbs, they last only for a matter of a year or two before they're all bent out of shape, and some of them are missing, some of them are cracked, some have tire, when the sun comes out, they get hot, and the tires break it up, and, I think that, in one hand, I know that we're probably trying to save some money, but I don't think it's really saving money in the long run. So I think we should try and do away with these hardtop kind of curbs. I think we should go to cement curbs, period. That's my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Sikora. Councillor Robinson, you have a comment.
Councillor Sikora actually raised a question that actually was a resident of Sir Crescent asked, and I thought, okay, I don't know the answer, so I'll ask staff. He pointed out that when it comes to asphalt curbs, the master municipal contract document that we use lists them as interim curbing. But we're no longer using them as interim. They've become permanent. It's kind of like those portables I mentioned on school properties. So the question that I have is, if they're interim to what? Or is it really permanent? Like, is this is now the standard and we're just going to be doing asphalt curbs? Chair, what?
Mr. Chair, sure. If the asphalt curb goes down, I think it's fair to say that it is pretty much semi-permanent until the time that the residents get together and are able to have a successful petition. We've taken a look at this issue at the staff level, and there is, I think, a bit of policy rethink for Coquitlam to undertake. And that is, what is a reasonable cost share for getting concrete curb? We want to put that on our work program for next year. Frankly, we have a lot ahead of us this year in terms of getting certain works done. Our intent is to do a policy review next year of the city's local area service bylaw and come to grips with the issue of the balance of what is a fair share in order to get the best infrastructure. Right now, the balance is heavily tilted toward the homeowner paying the vast majority of the charges. I think it's fair to say that there is better infrastructure than, for instance, asphalt curbs, but it has to be thought through at a policy level. And I think financial planning has to be involved. Funds have to be secured. And like I say, I think it's something that we will undertake as a policy review for 2011.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and at least it'll give homeowners the opportunity to have the choice. Even if it might cost them, at least it's a choice that's available to them. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item also concerns a local area service. This is for Tide Place, and it's a construction bylaw 4115. The recommendation is that council give first, second, and third readings to this bylaw.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item is item 5, is an update on infrastructure stimulus fund projects and other major capital projects. The staff recommendation is that the committee receive this report for information.
I'll move receipt.
Yep, second.
Seeing no questions?
Well,
Oh,
wait.
Councillor Reid?
Thank you. I have a question. Down on the schoolhouse in King Edward's flood protection. Now, is that going to take away all the problems we've always had with the goofy water problems we've had with respect to Lougheed and the Highway number 1 and all that stuff down there? Like, are we going to actually be flood-free? Mr. Susak?
Sure, I'll take an initial stab at that and then ask Mr. Zaborniak to comment. It will certainly improve it vastly. There will be far less business interruption. For example, the theaters will see far less problems. I'm not sure that we can achieve the 1 in 100 year, but currently we can hardly keep up with the 1 in 2 to 1 in 5 year events. Mark, any comment?
Just to add, I think Bill's sort of summed it up. You're not going to see the same flooding on those two streets that we have for the last number of years. Schoolhouse and King Edward, we're raising those streets up, so they'll be above the 10-year and even beyond that. So you're not going to see the same kind of flooding on those streets.
I always understood that part of the problem, and maybe Councillor Sikora would remember this, is that they told us that the pipes that they had put in when they put the freeway in were too small or something to take all the water away from that area. And I can't remember if that was the real reason, but I guess what I'm asking is when they're doing all the new accesses and egresses and all the work we're doing for the new Port Man, are they, if that's the truth, are they addressing any of that flooding problem we're having?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, they are making the culverts that go under the freeway larger, so it's that's going to also help the issue. But there's also local problems and that's why the flooding happens. It's not only because of the freeway crossings, but those improvements will also be made.
Okay, and so then the theaters, if you go to see Jaws, you don't have to worry about going in the parking lot and swimming to your car, right?
Well, the parking lot, we're not solving the parking lot, I think, is still going to be below the flood level, the lower level of the parking lot. So we're not solving that problem. But all the on-street issues are largely going to be fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
I have to wear my swimming trunks when I go to the movie.
That's right.
I have just a couple of questions about some of the works that we have listed. First of all, it explains how busy you guys are. I have a couple of questions about the Lougheed-Barnett Highway upgrade. What are the areas that are going to be safer for cyclists? Are you able to show us? I know that the Riverview piece, where Riverview is specifically, is a problem, but is the rest of it going to be okay? I mean, I have some people asking me, and I want to be able to give them an answer about which parts of that Lougheed-Barnett section are actually going to be safer to ride, so that they know how to prepare their trips. Through
the chair, the section through Riverview, we're not able to widen that because of the wall and on the one side and the CPR tracks on the other side. We're going to be putting in, but we will be doing bike lanes along the sections from North Road all the way to Schoolhouse. Most of that will have separate bike lanes, and along Barnett Highway and the portion of Lougheed that goes from Pine Tree to Port Coquitlam, we're going to be looking at widening the curb lanes, so not actually designating separate bike lanes. That section is not, the Barnett section is, for example, is not in the long-term plan to have bike lanes, but where we can, we'll be widening the lanes, at least the curb
shared
lanes.
Facilities, so it'll be shared.
Yeah.
Okay, so this part of Lougheed that runs into Barnett, this whole side won't be any safer. This from Schoolhouse through won't be any safer. Won't be any new, little narrow paths, little anything.
Where we can make it wider, we will. Some of that portion's already been paved recently.
Right.
So we're not repaving the sections that were just done. The part by Riverview, as I say, there's not a lot of opportunity to widen that. Part of the between Schoolhouse and Colony Farm is not our jurisdiction. So I mean, we'll work with the province on that, but it's not directly in our.
And what about Chilco up to Barnett or Chilco?
Yeah, that was just
paved, so that's not going to have any improvements.
We're doing a sidewalk along there, along a portion of that. The work that's going on right now, there's a multi-use path on one side that will actually accommodate cyclists for a portion of that.
So will there be letdowns so cyclists can scoot on over to it? Will there be places, those of us who are not great at jumping curbs?
You'll essentially, it'll be on the east side of I guess about half that section you just mentioned.
Yep.
So you can get onto that you would get onto it from anywhere along the east side of Lloyd Highway.
Great, thank you. I have one other question. It has to do with this traffic signal at North Road and Rochester. So these are the North Road improvements and the raised median on North Road from Lougheed to south of Rochester. Now, the new traffic signal, is that going to be cyclist friendly?
The main purpose of that traffic signal is for pedestrians. I'm not sure. We can look at to see whether there's the push buttons. I think are the best way to deal with bicycle traffic. So we can look for putting the push buttons that are very convenient for cycles.
Yeah, I mean that's actually one of the things that I'm actually keeping my eye open for is that when we're putting in new lamp standards, when there are going to be new traffic signals. You know, if I was just thinking about last week when we looked at the greenhouse gas and, you know, we're getting people out of their cars, let's make it as easy and as safe for folks as possible. So wherever there's anything new, and I get retrofitting, I get the expense, I understand that. But whenever there's anything new, if it's really not going to impact cost, let's at least keep that in mind and make sure that we're keeping, eventually we'll have enough turnover so that we really are there, but let's take advantage when we can. And the raised median, and again, I meant to get out there and I didn't. Is there going to be pedestrian access?
The raised median is a median in the center of the roadway.
Yeah.
So it defines traffic, it separates traffic, it defines turn lanes. It also provides, we're proposing to put in landscaping for much of that, which you know, I think improves the aesthetic view of most of the
So is there a
highway.
pedestrian crossing that goes through that median?
There will be
it's
pedestrian crossings at all the intersections. So we're not changing the pedestrian. It's not intended to get pedestrians across the highway. They would still have to cross at intersections, typically at a signalized intersection.
Right. So, I mean, where I'm going with this is what we see right now are sort of if people have to cross the median, there's a ramp. So for cyclists, you have to go up the ramp, or for wheelchairs, you have to wheel and go up the ramp. And I'm wondering if we could just have it flush with the road, so nobody has to go up any ramps. You just have your median, and then you have like a little hole in the median, and that's your waiting area.
Yeah, no, through the chair. I agree with you. I think that is the better way to design where you have crossings of roads. Don't put that raised part, because for one thing, it confuses pedestrians. They think that they cross to that point and then have to wait and then cross again.
Right.
So, yes, we will look for those opportunities, I guess, to do that design so that it's flush.
Okay, I just wanted to know if that was an opportunity. That's it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Councillor Reid again. And Councillor Sikora, did you want to?
Yes, I have one question. It's a puzzle of engineering. When you get to a corner and you put a letdown on this side, then you have a corner and then a letdown on this side, why don't you just make it one big letdown? Because we were discussing this as we were driving around Surrey in the Clayton Hills area today. When people come with wheelchairs or kids with toddlers and bikes and strollers and, you know, all that, why can't you just have, if it's a corner, why can't it just be all a letdown?
Do you want to take that?
Through the chair, currently the city standard is all based on standards that we've reviewed quite recently, probably in the beginning of around 2002. And also we follow the MMCD, the master specs put out for most municipalities. This has been brought up before, and we will be looking at it as part of the Great Street for Pine Tree. This summer, we will have an inventory of all some of these curb returns, as suggested by Councillor Reid, to improve some of these operations. So we will be reviewing the standards, and if council wishes, we can report back to committee.
Well, I would like you to come back to committee soon, because we're building a whole new city up on Burke Mountain, and why wouldn't we be putting some of this stuff in if we can? I mean, it just seems like such a waste.
That's it?
I'm done.
Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. I
Oh,
noticed...
I think Mr. Susak wanted to answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr.
No,
Sousa.
just a brief comment. That issue came directly to our attention a couple of weeks ago when we looked at some photos of some recently finished subdivisions up in the northeast, and it's an issue. There are some wheelchair curb letdowns there that project a wheelchair about 45 degrees into into an intersection, and we are going to be taking a look at those designs. Some of the issue might be problematic with respect to how tight or not a radius might be, but I've asked our staff to look at the design standards, notwithstanding what MMCDs or others might publish. We do have more vulnerable populations. We do have elderly and perhaps disabled people, and I think where we're at right now with the standard design may not be the optimal. It's something we are going to look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, on page 2, you have Lougheed Barnett improvements, section of North Road to Blue Mountain, out to tender, and yet in the first page you have the money already allotted for it. Is that the same project or not? Maybe this should have been in the closed door meeting, then open?
Mr. Sousa.
Sure, Mr. Chair. The Lougheed Barnett improvements have a global budget of some $18 million, and they are going out in I believe 6 separate tender packages. We've had the first one just recently come in. Any further comments on that, Mark?
Those are actually, those numbers are the Infrastructure Funding Canada. So those are already public in terms of the grant that we're receiving and the one-third share for the projects. So these projects have already been published in terms of the values of the grants and that kind of thing. It hasn't so far in terms of the market and the competitiveness of the bids. We haven't seen that has hurt the process. It's been very competitive, and we're hoping that it continues to be that way. It's really, like we've had a number of bidders come forward on these projects, and when that happens, you tend to get good prices. So far, it's been very competitive.
Okay, thank you.
I will just say that this is a lot of work. The department engineering's, I commend you for all this extra work you're doing. The one question I do have is on the new mediums on the Lougheed Highway, down at the lower end, especially between King Edward and Schoolhouse. We're at the water table there, and you're going to put planting in there. What's the issue of water coming up through our new median in the, is that been taken into consideration?
Sure, through the chair. Yeah, there's a section of Lougheed from about King Edward to Schoolhouse in that area where the median is in the middle and the road actually slopes towards the median, and we're actually going to be looking to have that as a rain garden feature for the. I mean, that's one place on the Lougheed Highway where you can use it as a rain garden, and that's where we're going to be doing that. And so the plants, we've hired a landscape architect to assist with choosing the plants and that kind of thing. But that's where there should be, the plants will be designed so that they can handle that kind of environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Next item, please.
Next item, item 6, is a street and traffic bylaw amendment for the removal of truck time restrictions on Coast Meridian Road from Victoria Drive to David Avenue, and on David Avenue from Pipeline Road to Coast Meridian Road. Recommendations that council give first, second, and third readings to bylaw 4111 to remove the truck travel time restrictions, and 2, request TransLink Board of Directors to review unrestricted truck access on the MRN segments traversing densely residential areas.
Okay. Do we have a mover?
I'll move.
I'll second, and I have a couple of comments.
Okay. Councillor Reamer, then Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I just have a question, actually. I'm in full support of removing the hours or the But my question is related to the use of engine brakes in some of our neighborhoods. Are we going to be putting up any signs or anything saying, please restrict the use of engine brakes in residential neighborhoods?
Through Mr. Suzak, please.
Mr. Chair, we can certainly take a look at whether we need those signs, and we can view it as really as direction from committee to look into placing signs or more signs if signs are already there for that specific purpose.
Yeah, because I assume that the trucks will start then traveling that route in the middle of the night, as an example. So that might be somewhat helpful.
Okay.
Yep. The one route you're going to probably look for engine brakes will be the David Avenue Hill.
Right.
Other than that
yes.
area, you won't probably, on David Avenue, that's where you're going to have the issue.
Yeah.
And
Mind
thank
you, we've got a lot of building up and down Coast Meridian there, too.
Well, this doesn't go up Coast, just goes up to David,
Okay.
then across
okay.
David.
Coquitlam.
Okay.
Okay?
You can't tell them what to do.
Well, no, I'm talking about the Coquitlam portion, up north of Victoria.
Okay. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to know, so what do we expect will be the real impact of this change, besides the fact that we can actually get money for this? I mean, what are some of the real concerns here?
Mr. Suzak, please.
Well, I think one of the real concerns is it does come down to dollars and cents. There is $160,000 on an annual funding basis at stake for going along with TransLink's requirements to have unrestricted truck use. We don't think that it is a real material threat to local neighborhood livability because we control Pipeline Road. And the real threat, if you want to call it, is nighttime hauling out of the gravel pits. We don't anticipate an awful lot of truck traffic arising out of acquiescing to TransLink's request. Also, we do have another recommendation in here, regarding that livability issue. Mm-hmm. We think it is fair ball for TransLink to take a look at and perhaps list some of those areas where there are dense neighborhoods, and this may well be an issue. So we're asking them to do their part too.
And I want to compliment you on that. That was actually one of the recommendations that caught my attention. I think TransLink needs to be realistic in this. So they're asking us to densify, like it's from a regional perspective, we're being asked to densify that we're not going to get proper transit unless we densify and we have these nodes. Well, guess what? The nodes are the same places the trucks are going to go, but yet the trucks have to have access 24 hours. So how does that impact livability? So I appreciate staff bringing that forward. Can we bold this request too? I'd really like them to take a good hard look and be respectful of neighborhoods and not tie the money to a 24-hour access. I think that's a bit unreasonable, but I'm also glad to hear that it's not likely to be a real concern for us. So thank you.
You're concluded.
I am concluded. Ready to vote.
Just through to Mr. Suzak, one last question. Where are we at this present time with TransLink and the rate of funding that they provide for the MRN?
I'm very pleased you asked, Mr. Chair. The common agreement and wisdom is that the cost of operating, maintaining, and rehabilitating a lane kilometer of a major road network is about $19,000 annually. The member municipalities receive 14 or 15,000. I'm not sure of the exact number, but it is substantially underfunded. I think it's also fair to say that there are some municipalities who don't have a huge issue with that because their inventory of MRN is reasonably robust. When one looks at how the road is founded, the foundation conditions of the road, for example. An awful lot of Coquitlam's MRN inventory, particularly Lougheed, is problematic. It sits on poor soils. For many years now, the Council of the City of Coquitlam has injected about $600,000 a year of its own general revenue in keeping up with the needs of the major road network. So there is a need to try to up that funding. It would certainly be a benefit to Coquitlam. In a nutshell, it should be 19,000. Right now, it's about 14 or 15,000.
Do you see any possibilities in the future with TransLink dealing with that issue?
I think it's incumbent upon all members of the municipal community to keep them informed about this. We have our own strategic objectives. I would say that obviously Evergreen is number one. It overrides everything. We need that probably ahead of anything else. But I think very closely following that is adequate funding for all of the region's transportation infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much. This has been moved and seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item, item 7, concerns an update on requested variance to truck route hours on Pipeline Road. The staff recommendations that the committee receive this report for information.
Move receipt.
Second.
Well, very good. Thank you. I just want to tell staff a very good job, and I think, we went through a lot on this, this issue with the pits, the fines, and to be going back to the general manager that we won't be needing a year-long, 3-year period, and our disappointment that where this council members had dealt with this and approved this on the fact that we were going to get the fines, and we were led down a path that turned out not to be true. And I'm very disappointed at how we were, and the residents were put through a bit of a ringer. We took this on because we thought that we were going to get a significant environmental benefit getting rid of these fines, which is an issue for Coquitlam. People that have been on the, Councillor Reeves, been on the Agri Committee off and on for a number of years, knows this issue. And hopefully we'll get better cooperation, better communication from Kiewit on these issues in the future. And I'm supportive of this moving forward. I just wanted to get those points out. Thank you. Seeing no others, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 8 is a report of the Deputy City Manager, and it's the 2009 Annual Sustainability Report. The staff recommendations to receive this report for information.
Move receipt. I have a question.
Second.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Why do you always say that if that's a problem, Brent? I'm actually was thrilled with the number of staff that joined me to listen to Sadhu Johnston speak at the local UDI luncheon last week, and it was very enlightening and hopeful, and looking at the possibility. Sadhu Johnston was the wunderkind from Chicago who brought in very innovative and creative green initiatives to that city, and he's now the deputy city manager at City Vancouver. And he talked a lot about some interesting ideas, and I want to know if there's some stuff that we might be looking at in terms of sustainability. And are we in any sort of way talking about green roofs and LEED standard for buildings? Because he said the biggest challenge is retrofitting, and I'm just talking about here we are, we're building, we're a growth community, and I'm wanting to know if there's at least some dialogue that we're thinking about this. Is it at least part of our conversation?
Who would like to take a step? I've got a comment on that. But Mr. Dumont, or who would like? I haven't commented at all.
Thank you very much, through the chair. We're having a large discussion around sustainability, and I think the sustainability report captures all the initiatives staff are doing. In terms of LEED standards around buildings, there, of course, are the trade-offs with costs, and some municipalities have adopted policies such as LEED Silver standards, things like that. Bill has a little bit of background on that, and he can just speak to the issues around LEED standards.
Mr. Suzak.
Sure. Just specifically with LEEDs, it's the LEED's design objectives and outcomes is what the city instructs its consultants to work toward. For any building project. However, it's a very expensive process. It is a process that easily costs 6 figures in a project. And I can recall some early discussions years ago when we were in the planning stages, for example, of the ice rink. thinking we could use that money. As long as we know that we're going to get the performance outcomes, do we really need to spend that kind of money seeking the actual certification versus an investment in the systems? So you know, it's something I think that's probably best addressed by the facilities group, but I would say that, yes, we take it very seriously. The issue, though, is that it's a very costly program, and my knowledge is that we're actually following it with our consultants, but not going to the expense of seeking the certification.
And I actually had come to understand that. So where's what the value, I mean, and I'm not sure that it's worth it, but the value of a LEED standard is that there's an accountability piece, and you get to and performance outcomes that people know that that's what they're getting. That's what the residents know that they're getting. And so have we created a way to let others know that that's the performance outcomes that we are working towards? And so I mean, I think if you could build to that standard without actually having to get the certification, that's great. But do we have a way of communicating to our residents that that's what we're doing in a way that makes them feel proud and that we're actually doing our part?
Through the chair, I think we're trying to do that in a variety of ways, and there's 3 examples on the agenda today. One is the sustainability report we're talking about right now. The next report is on our CO2 reductions, and using the Poirier Arena as an example, we went to a state-of-the-art green energy system, the Thermonex system that was presented to council. And in terms of getting the message out on how we're doing on that, we will be tracking our energy reductions once the arena is up and running, and we will hopefully be achieving the significant energy reductions that system is supposed to deliver, because it is a state-of-the-art green system. So we're using tools like this report and the next one, as well as the trimester report that's going to be on this evening's agenda, where we're actually taking specific performance measures relative to things like energy reduction and reporting them out to council.
Great. And what about green roofs? Is there any talk with any developers about that?
What?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I've not been involved in the green roof issue, but I'd be happy to look into it and send you a note on it.
It was certainly a big topic of conversation at the UDI table, and all the developers really were there. They were all over 6'4", and they were all there, and it certainly, I think, captured the imagination and the possibilities, and certainly the outcome data that Mr. Johnston was presenting to this group was quite outstanding in terms of the impact it has, and that those costs are really not like LEEDs. So that would be something that would be interesting for us to take a look at. I just have one other comment on this, and it has to do with the 1.8 kilometers of new cycling infrastructure that we have. And I don't know how many, May here could cycle 1.8 kilometers in 3 minutes flat. Right, May?
Oh, no problem.
So 1.8 kilometers is nothing, I think, to be proud of, actually. It's from a commuting perspective, you walk, kids walk to school, they'll walk 1.8 kilometers. And I'm actually I'm embarrassed, actually, by the amount of cycling infrastructure that we've been able to bring forward. So I would actually hope that in future budgets, we as a council will put more energy into making sure that we're doing our part in terms of sustainability and getting more cycling infrastructure. So that's all I have to say.
Well, everything comes down to our budgets and where we focus our money on, and we don't have an endless supply. And I think staff has been trying to make some more cost-effective line painting and other issues to move forward. Green roofs have been before this council before. I went to a seminar on green roofs. We had an application for green roofs, and Councillor Reid pointed out on a strata development the issues of maintenance fees, cost, and so it's not a panacea of an answer to all your problems. There's a lot of issues in regards, and most warranty insurance companies will not insure greenhouse roofs at this point in time. So there are a lot of issues with it. But it's something that people can propose themselves to come forward. But there are concerns. I think Councillor Reid pointed out on one development that could be problematic long term. So Hearing no other comments, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item, item 9, is the 2009 Climate Action Initiatives. The staff recommendation is that the committee receive this report for information.
Move for recommendation.
Second.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's the end.
That is the last formal item on the agenda.
Move adjournment.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody.